Politics now. Hard to argue that this has been anything but a great week for Eliot Spitzer. You know he's in the race for Comptroller. Here's the first poll since he announced he was out. It gives Spitzer a 9-point lead over Scott Stringer, and that's without Spitzer breaking a sweat. But the numbers actually get better for Spitzer. 46% of Democrats in the city say they have a favorable view of him, and that's despite his resignation, his rocky tenure as governor, and partaking of what we in the TV business would call paid programming in the bedroom. Oh, and remember all those questions about whether voters would be willing to give Spitzer a second chance? Forget about it. They are, or at least 2/3 of all city Democrats say they're willing to give him a second chance, and that despite a majority of New York Democrats who don't think that Spitzer has changed. 44% say he has, but you see the numbers. Most voters think it's the same old Spitzer, and they seem to be just fine with that. Are we surprised that people seem to be so willing to give Spitzer another run?
Well, I'm not into saying I told you so.
Go ahead.
But I told you this race was over.
You did tell me that.
The moment that he announced that he was going to, there's only one thing that can stop him in terms of, you're going to tell us, I believe, the exact number of petitions he submitted. If I'm Stringer, my entire life, my only thing that can stop Spitzer, I'm going to tie him up in court with a court challenge and pray I can knock enough of his petitions to get him off the ballot. That's the only chance he has. Or else this election is over. Spitzer's the next city controller.
Dorian, is it just that people don't care, or they think he's qualified for the... What do you think it is?
Name recognition, which is the same reason that I think Weiner is up in the mayoral poll. But, you know, everybody's concerned about Stringer or Spitzer in this race, and nobody's talking about that third crucial candidate, Kristen Davis, the Manhattan Madam. It's like you think she has no chance to take this thing.
I think she has no chance to take this thing.
Okay, she probably doesn't have a chance to take this thing, but I do think it's the name recognition, actually.
Really? Because, I mean, a lot of people have name recognition. Charles Manson has name recognition. Doesn't mean he would win elected office. I mean...
Well, a lot of people think Spitzer did a good job. They think he did a good job as Attorney General. They thought he was doing a decent job as governor. Now, they don't follow the politics so closely to know some of the things that maybe wouldn't be favorable. And in one respect, I'm happy that he's receiving acceptance from some people, because I think you ought to be able to redeem yourself. However, since we last spoke about this, I thought about it, and if he was actually charged with what he allegedly did and convicted of that, he'd be ineligible to run. He'd be ineligible to hold public office of any manner, and depending on whether he was incarcerated, he wouldn't even be able to vote. So
that's why he took the deal that he took at the time of his resignation. It was resign and we won't press the charges. And by the way, people might have selective memory, Doms. His governorship was not exactly flawless. I mean, it was not the smoothest sailing when he was in Albany.
Well, but in fairness to Mr. Spitzer, he was elected to take a wrecking ball and smash it into the legislature in Albany. The problems that we're reading about now with assemblymen and state senators being arrested almost every other day, his job was to go to Albany and start the process to change all of that. And so thus, if you interview any former state legislator or a lawmaker, they all have very bad things to say about him because they didn't like his style, you know.
Dominic mentioned the signatures that he needed to get on the ballot, and he had to do more than just make the media rounds, did Spitzer, in order to get on the ballot. He needed 3,750 signatures from registered New York City Democrats to get on the September 10th primary. He got 27,000 signatures since Monday. Now, some no doubt are going to be challenged in court. That's why campaigns are always looking for more signatures than they need. Scott Stringer got 100,000 signatures. Bill Thompson got 75,000. That's tops in the mayoral race. Joe Lhota got 17,000. That's the lowest total of anybody who's running for mayor. Here's my question. Is this signature thing just stupid as a qualifier for the ballot? I mean, if Eliot Spitzer can get that many in 4 days, is that really the best way to determine who should be on the ballot?
Well, we're talking about a city of 8 million people.
That's true.
And it's part of the democratic process. And when you're paying $800 for a page of signatures, you can get 27,000 signatures.
I mean, I suppose it eliminates the wackadoo candidates who can't even get that many signatures, but that doesn't seem like a very high bar to clear.
No, it's not a high bar to clear. But again, name recognition. Actually, as I was walking on Broadway the other day, I saw a bunch of Spitzers people on the, as he promised, on the street corners, which is an unfortunate
that's
statement.
not good.
But anyway, I saw a bunch of them. They were really hustling. I'm not totally
That's not good
surprised.
either.
And that was an accident. That wasn't even intentional.
And we're not even talking about Weiner.
I
in
got
all
a
this.
million of these.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not too surprised that he did it. But again, I don't think a crank could do it. I do think it's name recognition.
Well, but what you also do is you lose a lot of good candidates because you have a lot of people who are extremely capable of filling these positions that people don't know, and they never get an opportunity because they're not going to get those signatures. It's going to be impossible, or they don't have the money to have anyone help them get the signatures.
And Andrew,
filling those positions.
if you think he has a 9-point lead now, wait until he does Jay Leno tonight. Wait until he does Letterman and so on. And you better believe Spitzer knows to embrace all the criticism. And that's exactly what he's doing.
Well, Dominic led me there. We finally move on to Late Night Elliot, and no, that's not what I meant either. I meant how the late night comics have been dealing with the return of the Love Gov.
Eliot Spitzer, remember him? He announced he is running for New York City Comptroller. And one of his opponents is the madam who supplied him with hookers. She is running against him. There's a tough choice for the voters, huh? I mean, one is involved in the most degrading profession of all time, and the other ran a whorehouse. I mean, geez.
His campaign slogan is Spitzer, creating jobs by the hour.
Frankly, I'm surprised about Eliot Spitzer running for city comptroller because the comptroller, I mean, this guy couldn't even comptrol himself.
Now, those clips serve a couple of purposes. One, they're pretty funny. We needed the entertainment. And two, because right now Spitzer is in Los Angeles taping an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. It will air at around 11:30 tonight. Is this one of these cases where as long as they spell his name right, he's fine? Or does this actually help him, hurt him?
I think it helps him. I'm of the Dominic Carter school that any publicity is good publicity, especially if you're running for a New York City office and you're on a national TV show. Because apart from somebody who's running for mayor, and it would even have to be a rock star who's running for mayor, how many New York City politicians get invited to do Jay Leno?
But he's on Leno tonight, and he's been mentioned in all of these shows because he's a punchline. And is there... Do you think New Yorkers will have a problem voting for a punchline?
But Andrew,
yeah,
he may be a punchline, but they're still mentioning him.
That's true.
They're still mentioning his name. And, okay, Eliot Spitzer, Scott Stringer. Who?
I understand, but I mean, Mayor Bloomberg has been on these monologues before. The soda ban thing. I mean, Letterman wouldn't let go of that, but that's for something positive or at least something proactive that the mayor's trying to do. Do you think there might be any buyer's remorse here from voters who are like, if we do this, we could have 4 years of jokes about Anthony Weiner, we could have 4 years of jokes about Eliot Spitzer?
He was the sheriff of Wall Street. He was the sheriff of Wall Street before one of the biggest collapses. So people will remember that. And
I need a nickname like Sheriff of Wall Street.
one of the things that this will do is, since his fall from grace, this humanizes him. He's become a more humble person, and people can identify more with that. And I think that there's an element, whether it's with Marion Barry or any other disgraced politician that's given a second chance, that makes the people feel that he's not so different from us.
By the way, on The Tonight Show tonight is Bill Hader, who was on SNL and played Spitzer in some of those sketches that they did when he resigned. So that's going to be interesting, and no doubt that will be.
And then just think about this one part.
Yeah.
He's flying all the way to Los Angeles to be a punchline.
Right.
Think about that for a second.
Well, clearly
so
he
he knows
thinks it's
something,
gonna...
right? He knows something that we don't.
And he's also not doing Letterman, which is in New York. That's interesting too. All right, up next we're going to get into some D.C. politics and some headlines that might have flown under the radar with everything happening with Zimmerman and with Spitzer this week. We'll get into that next. Stay with us.